Hello, hello. I thought I'd get started. Thank you so much for joining. Looks like we're live, and if you can hear me okay, do let me know in the chats. Welcome to the session today. So, might be your first time here, or it might be you might be a regular viewer. So, good to see you back if you're here, or if you're new. I'll introduce myself very quickly. My name's Darren, and I'm an artist and teacher over in Melbourne, Victoria. And I run a bunch of these watercolor workshops each week. And yeah, basically, I got the idea of doing these because I tend to paint a few times a week anyway. So I thought, hey, why not stream it, get online, and at least you guys can sort of hear and see my process, ask me questions as well. If you have any questions during the demonstration, just pop them into the chats and I'll get back to you. I do check them pretty often during the stream. So if you're watching along, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. Over here in Melbourne, it's about 10:30 in the morning, so it's pretty, yeah, it's fairly early for us. But looks like we've got Ramona or Mona here in the chats. Nice to see you again, and thanks for coming along. Um, let's have a look. Who else have we got? I'm just gonna have a quick look at the other screens. We've got V here. Happy New Year, V. Good to see you again. And thank you for those suggestions that you sent through to me on Patreon as well. We've also got Yvonne here. Hi Darren, hope you had a great holiday. Yeah, it's pretty good. I've actually got a few weeks off work, so yeah, I've been taking it pretty easy actually, just at home and getting a lot of painting done. I've been working on a new portraiture class, and I'm also going to do a portraiture session with you guys at some stage. I just want to make sure that I've planned it out properly before I sort of get it started. I'm going to choose a proper reference photo. So thank you for joining. Hope you guys have all had a really good holiday, nice Christmas, nice New Year's, and thank you again for coming along. We've also got 𝗣𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢 here on Facebook. Good to see you, Kate. Again, if you're new here, I'm going to let a few more people sort of trickle through because we've got about 5 minutes before we start. If you're new here, just let me know. Yeah, just let me know where you're watching from. Always keen to hear where the different viewers are coming from. Ramona's asking, Darren, do you do private lessons? I do, and they're fairly limited at this stage because I'm trying to focus more on the online sort of stuff. I've got a spot available on Patreon, or you can also just message me separately afterwards, Ramona. So that's always an option. I try not to take on too many in-person students because I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys, if I do any in-person, not in-person, but one-on-one lessons, that I'm giving you, good value for your time because last thing I want to do is have a whole day just filled with tons of people and I'm not be able to focus enough. So, but for those of you who are new here, I'm going to show you some of the paintings I've done for my previous sessions because we're looking at a blank sheet of paper at the moment, and I think that's kind of boring. And I think, yeah, just having a little indication of what I've done in the past might give you a bit of a heads up on what to expect for today. No promises though, because sometimes you never know what can turn out. So this was the one that I did for my last session. I quite like this one actually, and I think a few of you did as well. So I've got a lot of different watercolor techniques there, preserving the lighter sections and just getting all these wet and then sort of sharper marks on the paper. We're going to be using some of these sort of techniques today as well. So kind of to get in, like, I guess, a little bit of the foreground of the reference picture with all these flowers, and also in the background where we've got trees and things like that. So those are sort of like dull down greens, a bit of browns and stuff like that in the background. It may resemble something like this, but I don't want to go too. I don't want to go too vibrant. I think in this one I've gone pretty hard with the yellows. So I'm going to try to dull that down a little bit. And I like this effect here, and I'm going to build on that a little bit more. Perhaps try put in a bit of yellow in there as well to get in some of these indications, these soft indications of flowers. Um, I've got also a few of these other ones from previous little sessions as well to show you what I've been doing, just some of the figures as well. Going to be doing some more figures probably on Saturday, either that or a portrait. I really want to try out some other kind of references that we haven't really done before, some new subjects, and I think that will be beneficial for both sides. Some more here. These are mainly landscapes, and that was a Taj Mahal scene that I did the other day. Some of you may have been here to watch it, and it's really good to see some of your results as well on Facebook, on the Facebook group that you guys are posting. So, very challenging subjects that we've been doing lately, and it's just fantastic to see you guys give it a go, especially knowing it's something new you haven't tried before. It's always a first time. So here's a few more. I'm going to go through and just kick off in a moment. But these are basically from previous demonstrations. You can see I've got a pretty loose kind of style, and but at the same time still preserving just enough detail there to give an indication of what's what. So this is again this sort of soft background here. I like this and may apply some of this technique to what we're going to do in this session, even some of this stuff in the front. So I love wet and wet watercolor painting, and anytime that I'm able to use those techniques on a larger scale, on a large bit of paper, I always jump at the opportunity. Another one, more wet and wet, bit of wet and dry in the background. This one's upside down. Some Melbourne scene here. We've got few more scenes here. A beach scene. This was requested by Maria, one of my viewers, and this is her hometown, Cefalu, Sicily. And Venice scene with a bit of wet and wet here, a bit of wet and wet in the sky and sharper details. Yeah, I love blending both. Same sort of go here. Post that scene. So, that's my kind of style, and I tend to paint pretty quickly as well. So, I think being able to get in a reasonably accurate impression, I think it creates a certain type of style and effect in your watercolors, and that's something that I like doing, especially when we've got a few, maybe a couple of hours to go through everything. I think that's always preferable. I don't want everyone to be sitting around all day trying to get in little details here and there, but with portraiture, I think that's going to certainly be the case. We'll be sitting around for a bit longer. Thank you, Ramona. Yeah, have a look, and if you've got questions, let me know. I do have a on Patreon as well, Ramona. I do have classes and a lot of pre-recorded courses on there. The top tier has about 37 classes in there at the moment, so you can go ahead and check that out. That might work as well. Sign up. You can sign up for a month if you like it. You can hang on. If you don't, you can also just cancel. And if you don't like it, I'll also refund you the money if you want. But I'm sure you will like it. Una's here. Una Brogan says she's watching from Ireland. My first time, so really looking forward to it. Thank you for coming along, Una, and welcome. It's always good to have new people here, and glad to have you. So. One of the things I'll get you guys to do is start bringing out your materials. So I've got some paper. I'm working on an not A4, but a 1/4 sheet of watercolor paper. Okay, and basically it's almost an A3 size sort of a sheet of paper. I'm also using a bunch of, I haven't decided exactly which brushes I'll use yet, but I do have a bunch of these brushes here, which are kind of mop brushes, watercolor mop brushes. And in terms of the sizing of the brushes, you just want to have a brush that's large enough for the bit of paper so you can get in a large wash and still be able to cut around details. Also, a couple of smaller brushes too. These ones have been quite incredible actually, because I've been able to get in most details for all my paintings with these. I'm going to do a review of them at some stage. And I've got all these other miscellaneous brushes that I have. One thing to keep in mind is that if you need a little detailing brush as well, something like maybe this one here, there, number 6 round brush. They don't cost too much. These synthetic brushes, they last a really long time as well. This one was sent to me by some company. But basically, you know, these are really good for getting in small details, sharp details, where you don't need to pick up too much water. Fine with synthetic brushes, they really don't hold as much water, but they're getting so much better these days. I find the larger ones, I've been using those for big washes as well. So this is synthetic squirrel here. So let's I'm going to have a quick go through the chats. Pamela, thank you for joining. Pamela from Bully in New South Wales. We've also got Philip Patterson from Melbourne. Good to see you again. And also it was good to see your scene of those monks. I think it was you. Yeah, you done those monks the other day, and you posted on Instagram. Difficult subject, and well done for giving it a go. Ramona says, really love your style. Thanks, Ramona. And Lydia says, from New Jersey, have you done any Australian landscapes? I haven't specifically, nah, but I think Nerida requested for me to do one of them. I will at some stage, just haven't got around to doing it yet, but I will actually write that down right now because I have gotten to actually add that to the list of subjects. I do take requests from you guys. If you have any suggestions of subjects and things that you'd want to do. Actually, I have put that down. Nerida Carter's asked for bushland, rocks, red gum trees. So I'll just put Australian landscapes in here. Fantastic. Thank you for that reminder, Lydia. And Sonal Shah is also here from the SFA area. Thank you for joining. I'm just going to go through some of the chats on YouTube as well. Shanolan's here. Thank you for joining, Shanolan. Good evening, Darren. May not be here, able to stay long. Yeah, it's a bit tricky to get everyone at the right time. If you also have suggestions on what times work for you, do let me know and I'll see if I can do some bonus ones. It's also good for me, kind of like gets me up and painting. Sometimes when I'm just sitting around, you know, I can turn on the camera and start painting something. V says, love them all. Hard to pick a favorite, but I do love that lighthouse one. And V says, love the Patreon subscription as everything is right there. Yeah, I upload all the classes and they're just sort of on as individual posts, so you can see all the different all the different classes I've got on there. I've got about 37. I think there's, I don't know how many hours of video, probably close to 300 hours of video up there that's separate from YouTube. And I make a lot of videos, and V's one of my patrons. V says, enjoying the etcher set I bought. I've not had really to pull out any other brushes since I got them. Cool. Eventually, we able to get some good Princeton brushes, but for now, these will do. I can live with how they hold paint / water. Yeah, I think you're talking about the etcher set that they kind of come in that little, what do you call it? Like the kind of Hessian sort of bag sort of thing. So yeah, I think a lot of synthetic brushes, they're getting quite good these days. And you know, these ones I received probably mid last year from a company called Zen Art. And look, they're still keeping their tips and their points pretty well. So that's one of the good things about the brushes these days. They tend to hold a lot more water than they used to. Don's here as well. Good to see you, Don. And from Little Rock, Arkansas. Nice day to be inside. It's cold out there. Yeah, today it's what's the temperature? I think it's like about 20. It's about 20 something degrees. I do want to head out later, maybe grab a bite. I haven't got anything to eat in the fridge. So yeah, unless I want to stick with cereal. But thank you for joining. And if at any time during the session you're enjoying it, feel free to hit that like button. and also to share it around on Facebook and on to some of your friends as well. That does help me out a great deal, to get some more views and stuff like that. Okay. V's saying, good to know they're holding up for you. I was curious how they were. They're not bad in price. Yeah, look, honestly, a lot of these synthetic brushes, I've seen other companies do similar ones as well. So I haven't seen a huge difference really in the synthetics, unless if you buy those really cheap synthetic brushes, which are, I don't know, if you see them in the pack, sometimes they come at like $5 to $10 for like 10 of them. I wouldn't recommend those because they really fray a lot, and then they don't hold a point at all. You tend to use them a few times and then just turn to these blunt, useless sort of brushes. So spend a little bit more on the synthetics, but up to a certain point, once you spend about 20 to $30 on a little set of synthetics, and I find they don't really change all that much. So I also use some Chinese calligraphy brushes as well. I haven't got them here in hand, but they're kind of these longer sort of ones, and they last a really long time and they hold a good point as well. So guys, what I'll do, I have linked the reference picture. If you have a look in the community tab on Facebook, or if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Facebook, check the discussions tab. I've posted a link in the discussions, and that's going to let you go through and figure out. Basically, there's a little sketch, what you call it, a template. I didn't get much sleep last night for some reason. Template, and it's kind of like a tracing template or a simplified drawing template that you can use, as well as the actual reference picture that we're going to be using today. I should have this up on the screen so you guys have something more interesting to look at. But you have that up on one side of the screen, and on the other side of the screen, what would be good is that if you just have the video playing, that way you can see both at the same time. It's going to be a lot easier for you to keep up with what's going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started now. So I've got just a normal pencil here, just a normal mechanical pencil, nothing special, and it's a thicker sort of one, and I think it's a 1.3 millimeter lead. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna go with one of the most important parts of this process in painting a landscape. We've got to do the drawing, and it's something that a lot of people skip out on, and it's just so crucial because you're not going to know where to go in with your paint unless you get this part in correctly. So what I want to do is kind of find really basic shapes, the easiest things to draw in. Okay, and probably the most simple thing to draw in is two simple things: the mountains and also this area here at the front. So where the flowers kind of and the grass and stuff like that hit the ground, you'll notice what happens is that it kind of starts around the quarter mark, about a quarter of the way up the page there. So I pop a little mark there, and it goes up just marginally, almost to 1/3 of the page. I mean, you can almost just put it up nearly a third of the page. So there's a slight sort of slope. So we can go ahead and, what I'm doing, just try to draw this line in, okay, really lightly. Doesn't have to be, make sure you don't go too dark. Because this is, yeah, it's good. I'm going to try to make this a softer edge. Not a second. Okay. So get that in. I've got some hay fever, and it's try not to take those pills too often, but you might hear me sneeze. Might hear me sneeze every now and then. I try to mute the audio. I think some of you guys caught me last time mid sneeze. Scared a few of you. So it's a hay fever season over here. So let me get that reference photo up again. The most difficult thing here is the buildings. More specifically, these ones here. Okay, so another thing we'll do is we're going to just put in a little outline, basically almost where the buildings start on that left-hand side. There's a little hill that goes up, another hill that goes up there. There's a larger sort of shrub or something here, like that. Just outline that. And over here is roughly where the building starts. Okay, really, I'm not even going to draw it in exactly just yet. Just a little outline to make sure I've got it in It basically got it in the right spot. Remember also we can increase the size of buildings. We don't have to stick exactly with the reference photo. Little top of it, kind of, where does it end? It ends about, it's about here. But again, we can lower it down if we want to. I'm just basically placing some objects, some of the houses and stuff like that quickly in, mainly for positioning purposes. Okay, you notice this house, this little house here, it kind of comes on a hill and then it goes down. The hill finishes roughly here. Okay, so if you cut the page down the middle, it's kind of like almost where that little house is with the dark side of the roof, under roof or what have you. And that finishes just a little bit past halfway point there. This will then give you an indication of where to put this one. Okay. Again, I'm not even trying to draw it properly. Just a quick thing like that. Gets you kind of warmed up as well. Now there's there is a hill here, and I think I will just go over the top of this, top of that spire point of top of that building. Go up here, okay. Larger kind of mountain. Come down here. So it comes down to decisions as well. How much sky do you want to get in there? You want more sky, make the mountain smaller. If you want less sky, make it a little bit higher. I'm being more faithful to the reference photo here, actually. Okay, so there's more of this mountainous area, and I hope what we can do is also just try to get in some textures of the trees and whatever's going on in there. Some wet and wet work. Just have some fun with it. I like painting these large areas. I kind of got quite into it in the last session with all the different things that we had in there. Yeah, we got so much detail in this area, and I don't really see too much point of adding in all the detail of the trees or anything like that. You guys might want to do that, for example, here to maybe put a little area separation. You know, this side of the mountain kind of comes down. There's a small separation there. That's a separation here, something like that. But apart from that, I wouldn't waste too much time on drawing all these trees and stuff like that, because we're going to go over it with paint anyway. It's all going to be soft in the background. So got some of the indications of the buildings, and again, we've got more buildings and what have you here on the right hand side, and we can see this one starts just about this little house just in the middle. You can see this hill come down and hit the front foreground. Then we've got a little house here. This. The most important thing is to get straight lines in. Yeah, structured sort of lines. And I say that because we're going to be using a lot of wet and wet, a lot of softer sort of techniques in here. So if we end up making these houses and buildings too soft, they're just going to blend in, and we're not going to be able to imply this sense of the buildings and this little town. This is an area I had to actually search it up on Google, do a little Google reverse image search, and I put it in the description. Actually, it's an area called Sagogn. I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. Sagogn in Switzerland. Interesting, really beautiful sort of photograph, and I thought, geez, I want to give this a go. Okay, I think for beginners especially, you might look at it and think, geez, this is pretty intimidating. There's a lot of things going on here, but you know, we'll simplify it down. Just continue on. I'm going to go through a few chats as well. But Corinna here from the US, Minnesota. Thank you for joining, Corinna. Let's have a look. I hope the feed's okay. Can you guys let me know if you can hear and see me okay on camera? Corinna's saying that the feed's a little bit spotty on Facebook. Just let me know if you're having trouble. I do have a YouTube as well. You can jump onto the YouTube and view the live there. I've tried not to put the link in there because I thought maybe it might be just a little bit better for the Facebook system or whatever. If I don't have like, too many links in the in the boxes, doesn't seem to make much of a difference. But yeah, I usually have I usually have it in there as a bit of a backup. Let's have a look. What else do we have? Yeah, it's chats. Jeanette's here. Drawing lines are very light in the video. Ooh, let me, Jeanette. I'm gonna go over everything again, so I'll make it a bit darker for you and everyone else to follow. Just really make sure at this stage that you have the main lines in. So like the front here, where you've got the separation of the what you call it, the flowers and stuff like that, and how it just goes up, and just some of the hills. If you've got that in, that's a really good starting point. I'll keep continuing on and darkening some of these. And Jeanette says she's watching along with her daughters. Fantastic, got the whole family there, and looks like it might have some budding artists as well. And oh yeah, let's have a look. Setting up to follow. And narrators here. It says it's actually raining in Sydney, New South Wales. Wow. Well, I can have to stay inside anyway. Hope things are going well for you, or they're going okay for you over in Sydney. I hear things are a little bit chaotic these days. But you know, we make do. And I'm just gonna have a look who else we have here in the chats. Tanya. Hey Tanya, good to see you. Tanya's from Heidelberg Heights here in Victoria, and Tanya's also a fellow artist. She does a lot of like pen and wash stuff, and also and also sort of clays and stuff like that. Used to work with Tanya once upon a time. Thank you for joining. Rupert from California. Looking forward to this one. The Myanmar Mark tutorial was a tough one. Yeah, yeah, that was tough. Even for me, I kind of when you have so many figures like that. But I'm gonna do a few more so we can get our heads around and feel a bit more comfortable doing figures, because I think doing larger figures, especially, is something that people tend to avoid. Yes. So Don says can hear fine. Hard to see the drawing. Okay, I'm gonna try to darken some of the pencil here for you guys, so you can see better. So let's have a look here. Hope that's a little bit. I don't want to make it too dark because then it's going to start showing through my painting. But you can see here just up the top, a little bit there. Okay, and some of the buildings as well. Let me just start popping in some of these buildings. We've got Angela from Canada. Good to see you, Angela. Angela Barbetta. It's been a little while since I've seen you in the comments, but thank you for coming along. Robin, how you doing, Robin? I've got two Robins. So Robin Carrington from Mansfield, Victoria. Good to have you here. And Angela's asking, should we mask the white church? If you'd like to mask it, you can. I don't really use masking fluid. I tend to just work straight on. Yeah, I tend to just try to cut around, and yeah. So it's up to you. You can mask it though if that works for you. Many different ways. You can even go in afterwards with some white gouache. Robin's saying just watching now. We'll come back to some painting later. Took some time off during the holidays. Yeah, and feel free to talk to each other in the chats as well. It's always a good little thing when you've got a community and you can sort of pump each other up to get painting. It's always good. Keeps you busy and consistent with your painting. So yeah, I do recommend try what I'm doing in terms of in terms of the masking fluid. See if you can make do without it, because I find that it's just having that efficiency of being able to pull out that brush and also that self-control as well to cut around those areas. It's tough, especially when you're painting stuff like snow. So let's have a look. I think we are all caught up with the chats. Let me just grab out. Oh, I've opened up some windows by accident. Just want to make more people in. Ellen's here as well. Good to see Ellen. And she's saying there's no problems on YouTube, so that's good. So yeah, I know some of you, sometimes the stream may be funny on one or the other platform because I stream to both at the same time. And I don't know, sometimes the connection may not be strong enough, or it could be something on their end. So YouTube tends to get pretty consistent video quality though. So that might be something that you you want to do. Also, oh, that's a good point, Don. Change the video resolution to high. So if you go into the bottom right-hand corner of the video, there's a little cog, or just in the bottom bar of the video, there's a little cog, and you can change that to 720p, and that's going to allow you to see a lot more clearer. Because I know in the lower resolutions, it's tough to actually see what's going on in the video. It's just not going to be high enough resolution. So do that if you haven't done that already. That's a good point, Don. So let's continue on with the drawing. And you know, the most important parts of this, like the buildings that we're going to do, are these ones, these three here. They're the largest ones, and especially this church. You know, there's a lot of a lot of detail in there. So, but at the same time, I really don't want you guys to fuss too much over it. Yeah, but try to get it in somewhat accurately. That hill here, you know, it's really quite amazing. You've got all this lush sort of greens over there in the background. So I'm going to start putting in the base of this building. And it's funny because I can't really get a point with this pencil. It's very tricky because the lead is it's 1.3 millimeter lead. So it's tricky to get in points. So almost I use it as well because it forces me to draw a little bit more loosely and decide what bits I want to focus on, because if I try to detail everything, it just looks messy. So there's a little rooftop here, okay? There, that kind of comes across here. This bit here, here, bit of a top part of this roof here, coming up like here to a point, triangle there, that. Okay, what have we got in here? We've got some more here on the side of this building there. A bit of this underside of the roof, you know, there. Just draw what you see and simplify them down to little shapes. That's probably the best advice that I can give you guys. You know, this top of the roof, it's a triangle, and if you try to draw a triangle, you're going to be more successful in that sense. It's a lot easier to draw one. Break everything down into little components. Trying to draw a little bit darker as well. Normally I'd go lighter. I'd suggest you go a little lighter if you're drawing along at home, just so that the pencil doesn't show through too much. There, let's have a look on this side. Measurements, this side comes up. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze, so if I scare you guys suddenly, do apologize. I'm trying to hold it in. There we go. Bit of this rooftop here. It kind of joins onto that right side. That comes down here. That here. There. Buildings are very close together. Good. This part of the roof, like here, and then there's actually more details on here. It's quite yeah, there's a lot of details on here, but I might simplify this down actually just to one sided roof like this. This will make it a lot easier to get in. So have like a bit of the roof. This tends to happen when you start scribbling too much into an area. Figure out what you've drawn in there in the first place. Like that. And this part of that building comes down, and then we've got this part here, which comes down like this. There we go. Simplified down side as well. And it actually has a little bit that juts off the side of the building here at the back. That comes down. And I've gone over that other building, but no problem. Made the church a little bit bigger. And I'm hoping that will, I don't know, just have more of an emphasis over on that side. And let's go ahead and put in the top of the church. Okay, now I've actually drawn it in here. This is in the wrong position. Yeah, but having that little guideline there is good just so that I can have a place to start off with. Okay, this top of the spire is like maybe here. So we'll draw that rectangle down and note about where it cuts the roof, where it hits the roof. So it's about halfway through this section of the roof from here to here. Okay. Do this with portraiture as well. I kind of use anything really that you're drawing. Something like that. And it kind of cuts about halfway down. There's a bit of a shadow on that right hand side. So the light source actually coming from the left. Uh, hmm. Or like almost above to the left. Up to the up and left. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so some of this top part of that. How are we going to draw? Looks like a horn or something, doesn't it? Yeah, top of a horn. I've done this a little bit too tall. I'm going to just erase that and reduce the size of it slightly. A bit better, something like that. Then again, let's just this up so that it kind of, when it's kind of in curved sort of shape. There. And there's some darkness underneath. Okay, so I tend to try to really get this tops of these buildings in a little bit more accurate. This one's a bit tricky because it curves, right? That. So just spend some time on that and get it to a point where you're, fairly happy with how it looks. Okay. And it's not the end of the world if it isn't in it 100% accurately as well. Okay. Sometimes what happens is you take a photograph from different angles and you get some aspects of the building look more exaggerated, just due to the angle of the shot. So that's what I say to comfort myself anyway. I draw things a little bit too big or too small or on a funny angle. Righto, so that's it. I think we got enough detail in for this building. I hope you guys can see this. I'm really trying to like just get it darker so that you can see what I'm drawing. But remember to bump that resolution on the video if you haven't already. Go down into the the bottom bar of the video, and you can click the little cog, change that to 720p, maximum resolution that I can stream here on Facebook, YouTube at the same time. Okay, that's looking good. I'm not going to draw too much detail back in there. Let's go ahead and work on this other two kind of houses here. So this one, again, we're going to use this as a guide to draw the other one. How big are we going to draw it? Well, we notice the roof actually goes only up to about here. I'm going to actually reduce the size of it a little, but you don't want to make it too big. Okay, so that's the top. That's the bottom of it here, the bottom of the roof. It kind of forms a triangle like this. Little triangle. I've gone a bit funny with that line. Let's draw that a little bit straighter, yeah. On. That. This. Yeah. And just flat down this. There's actually some trees in front of it. See them? Just little trees like there. So we can draw out the outlines of the trees. Overlapping shapes in any sort of scene, whether you're drawing it with pen or whether you're drawing it with painting in watercolors, they really make things look more interesting when you've got overlapping shapes. Here we go. Now I'm going to bring this side of the house down. Okay, so I hope you can see okay what I'm drawing at this stage. It's a little bit more, it's certainly a little darker than I usually draw, but I think we'll be good because we've got quite a dark background. It's going to help me form an edge there. you'll be surprised how light they look after. You barely be able to see them once you get that paint in. So that church is important. We just gotta really focus on that one, guys. There's little windows and things in here as well. And look, I'm not going to really bother with that. Okay, I'm just going to keep that darker. Okay. Now, underneath the roof, there's like a little shadow. So note that and later. Okay, there's a little house here to that right-hand side. Let's go ahead and put that in. The rooftop, it's a trapezoid. Like that. Just like that. Just draw in that shape, the trapezoid. That's all it is. Then, this is a triangle here. You're drawing a trapezoid, you're drawing a little triangle, and then you draw the box at the bottom. Just extend out the line so that they go down. And that's it. You've drawn in a little house. Okay, another tree and tons of jazz on the side of the house. I don't know what that is. Details, that kind of thing. You do notice there's other smaller houses and things here in the back. You know, here we go. We can put in another one there. That disappears off. There's some lighter sections in there as well. There's a little bit of indication like that. Here on that right-hand side, there seems to be some kind of tree here. Another tree here, here. So there's a lot of greens dispersed into this scene. Okay, and the challenging part, you know, really initially is drawing these buildings in. Yeah, having a good foundation of knowing when to cut around, because as you can see in one of the last ones that I did here, you need to have some sharp building shapes there that you preserve, and then you can do all this sort of loose work around. And the combination of this looseness and with the sharpness creates something quite unique, creates a center of focus, and you can tell what's going on in here. So it doesn't just dissipate into just a complete mess. Okay. I'll always make sure that I get the buildings in. Man-made objects and buildings, that kind of thing, they always have well, not always, but they often have sharper edges and just look harsher than natural objects. Again, here we go, some little windows and stuff. We don't have to really put that in. Okay, outline of these trees like that. Trees go around the side of the house there. Some more details of the houses, just some rooftops and what have you here on the sides. And that's this is like another trapezoid shape I thought I'd draw in here. Side of a roof or something like that. You know, even in the background, you notice some little houses and stuff like that. Excuse me for kind of touching my nose constantly. It's just quite itchy because of hay fever. But the good news is that I haven't sneezed yet. Sometimes if I just ignore it for enough, it tends to go away. Turn on the air conditioner. Actually. Sometimes it helps. Why it's very hot, super hot. Get after a hot day, and the buildings just hold in the heat, and it's not as bad as it is actually in WA. I'm from Perth, and the thing I noticed when I moved to Melbourne that there's no brick houses here. They just don't have any brick houses. So bricks are just notorious for holding in a lot of heat. But I do like the look of brick buildings, though. They have such character to them. And yeah, side of that building. So here we go. I'm just picking out a few buildings here and there. I'm really not. One of the things I'm not trying to do is to get in the exact shape of everything here and there. Just have a few buildings overlap shapes. That's a triangle, kind of a triangle shape there. You know, here's another smaller triangle here, maybe overlapping. So we've got an overlapping triangle here to indicate kind of like a rooftop. Another one here, and a building there in the back. Okay, we're going to continue this pattern along to get ourselves in just some of these little houses and stuff. Take your time. Think of it as a relaxing little activity that you are using to plan out your painting. Think of it as that. I used to really not like drawing in the sketching in. I just wanted to get straight into painting. You know, I can be quite impatient when I want to paint. I just want to start straight away. But the drawing is so important because it forms the basis of where your brushstrokes go. It allows your mind to also plan out where to put things. So you're already painting. You might not think so, but you're already painting at the moment. Just doing it mentally. Bit of you start thinking, oh, okay, I might go into here. I might put in some light brushstrokes here, or start with the bit in the front and that kind of thing. But you go straight in and without too much thought about the composition, and miss those important aspects. There is something in here, a little bell tower. Can you see that? Like a little, I don't know if it's a bell tower, but there's some kind of, maybe another church or something. A lot of churches in this little town. And look at how, see, I've drawn this one, and then I notice there's another roof overlapping, so I can go ahead and just start drawing over the top of that one, stopping myself just before I draw in the rest of that building before, and then get in this one here, like that. Okay, and this is a really good way to just indicate overlapping shapes. Depth, super important. Giving it the feeling of, yeah, just overlapping shapes, overlapping houses, kind of density to this scene. Okay, we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. I'm also deciding, I've had an idea of putting in a figure, maybe some figures walking through. We could do that. We could try to put in a figure here or something, walking through the field. Couple of figures, simple ones walking through like that. And I think their legs will be kind of obscured a little bit because of the grass and the flowers. You won't see them all. The legs won't go down as far. Kind of like dissipate off of there. This sometimes just use a cotton bud to soften off some areas like that. Almost gives some indication of the darkness around the buildings and stuff like that. Just already getting me composing what I want to put in there. Okay, so what were we doing? We're kind of over here on this house, and of course there was some kind of church or something here, tower. So here, let's put that in. This rectangular shape like this, just a box. Think of it as a box popping up into the sky. Separation roughly down the center. Top of it's tricky. Simplified down, something like this. Something in there. One of the most tricky buildings to draw are like these Russian buildings, because they have the older Russian buildings and the monasteries and stuff. They have these onion-shaped tops on them, the look, it's sort of similar to this, but not really. And they're quite tricky. They're quite tricky to draw. Okay, so here's another rooftop or something, another bit of tree in here. Here's another, you can do it pretty quickly here on this side. If you want, if you're getting a bit over it, just make sure you get the rooftops in. Nice little sharp rooftop like that. And then the bottom of the buildings. That it's kind of like a hilly area back there. Goes up a little, and then here at the front you can see actually a bunch of these 3 pointed houses. Can you see them just ducking behind the everything else? It's really behind here. It's a lot of just all these little, what you call it, trees and shrubs. Simplifying down some more. Okay, there we go. Of that house. The triangular sort of shape, the geometric, more obvious geometric shapes that you see in there. You sometimes got to exaggerate that when you're in your drawing, because we're reducing. Remember that we're reducing details in here as well. So when you reduce detail, often in a painting, you got to exaggerate some of the shapes that you do include. Okay, I think that's it. I'm just having a look to see if there's anything else that I want to put in there. I'm pretty okay with this, and I hope you guys have gone okay with the drawing. I'm going to be checking the chats in just a moment. Like I said, these couple of figures there I thought would be good. Do I want to put in another figure on this side? We could do that. Maybe here, a little bit further along. Okay, having a little stroll through the field. Okay. Let me just have a look at the chats. I think we're all good to go. And there's some good comments about the feed. So it looks like you guys can see all okay. Righto. Do let me know how you're going, how you're traveling with this one. If you need a few more pointers, that kind of thing, just drop a message in the chats. Let me have a look at the other chat. Okay, Karina saying the feed issue was on my end solved. Fantastic. Great. Susan Grider is here from Texas. Thank you for joining, Susan. Okay, good. And Jeanette saying that you've got it cast. You've got the video cast on your TV. You're making me nervous, Jeanette. Now we can now we can see now it's darker. Cool. Awesome. I think we are good to continue, yeah. But yeah, let me know if you've got more questions. We'll answer your questions because I'm checking the chats. Okay. Might give you guys a little bit just to let me know how you're faring so far. I think the painting's not going to take any longer than 45 minutes or so. And there were some questions about classes and things like that, and I take this little opportunity to share my my Patreon. Okay, no pressure. It's there. You want to take a look at it? Just put it in the chats. Right. I hope you are all going okay. Now, in terms of the brushes that we want to use, so like I said, this one here is a mop brush, number 0. I don't really take too much too much notice of the numbers. It's more sort of the size of the paper. I pick a brush that's big enough to cover an area. If you notice there's a really small point here. This point allows you to get in details. I tend to hold the brush on the end to paint most of the larger shapes. Then when I get closer to stuff like this, that's when I go smaller and paint around. Okay, I mean not smaller, but I hold the brush closer to the tip, like a pencil. You can get that in. I bought these other new brushes lately as well. And I haven't used them all too much. They're interesting detailing brushes because I need some of these for portraiture, but you can see how these ones have almost like a pencil style grip there. I'm not used to holding brushes like this. I'm going to do some reviews of these ones at some stage. But yeah. Righto, I will get started, guys, with the painting. Just make sure that you've got your palette out and everything like that. I'm also going to grab mine out in just a moment. Over here, I haven't cleaned it, which is okay because I want to get in some muted sort of tones. Make sure that I've got enough space so that you guys can see as well. That. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is get in the lighter sort of sections in the painting. I always do this first. Always the lighter bits. It just makes it so much easier. So then we can go in with the darker bits later. Cut around the tops. Now, really up to you what colors you want to use for the buildings. You can use completely white. You can leave the white on the paper like that, or you can dull it down a little bit. I'm going to use a combination of both, and maybe some warm colors in there as well. Just some slight light, not too saturated like I've done some of my other ones. I'm trying to use less saturation and save the most saturated bits for the some contrasting areas. I've got some burnt sienna and a little bit of this. It's really just burnt sienna, bit of neutral tint, bit of yellow, just a very dull down color like that. And I'm going to go into the side of this building like this. Yeah. Okay. That. I'm going to put in some water and a little bit of this paint here, which is buff titanium, on the left hand side. Almost the same color anyway. It doesn't matter. We will. I'll have to probably just darken down right hand side. If you go outside the lines as well, don't worry about it. Okay, because it's going to. We're going to be going over that background anyway with another color. So don't stress. As long as it's not too dark, just keep it very light. So all the colors I'm using at the moment, in terms of the mixing, I'm using about 80% water, 80% or more water. Very, very light. It's when you put it on, it almost looks too weak, and you think, I need to go darker. But actually, it's a good color. so make sure you don't go too dark. There we go, a bit there, top of that roof. Okay, these are quite dull down colors actually. I'm trying to simplify this down. There's the white of the church. Okay, we can preserve some of that. Notice a bit of light here, and then sort of darkness here. Let's just have a look. A bit darker here, and then down the side, this whole side of the building is darker. That. There we go, and we can just preserve the rest of that. Leave the white, yeah. So, someone was asking a little bit before about masking fluid. You don't need masking fluid for this. You can just cut around it like that. Leave those little bits in there. The rooftop, I might just color that in a little more as well. This, simplify it down. We can also lift off some paint later, so don't worry or anything if it's not the exact color. Going over here, this is a bit of buff titanium. It's just a dulled down white kind of color. And the rooftop, it's a kind of, it's an orangey brown kind of color, isn't it? Orangey sort of brown color. Let me just drop in some of that up here. Okay. At this point, I was only thinking of adding in colors, like really light colors. I'm not trying to get in any detail or that kind of thing. Okay. You'll find that you wait long enough, this will dry, and then you can cut around all the shapes quite nicely. So even if you paint all kinds of rubbish in there, you'll be able to cut around it very well. So I tend to leave that to dry, and then you pick up just more paint. You know, this might be a bit of brown here. Let's put in a little bit of lighter brown for the rooftop. This. And yeah, again with that right hand side, we've got darkness on that section here like this, a bit of darkness underneath the building here to that left there. Some neutral tint, and actually there's probably some green stuff in here as well. A little bit of darkness in there, a bit of color in that roof here. That. Sometimes also if you've got a smaller brush, you've got a little round brush, use that if that helps you in terms of your detailing. Okay. It's also a good idea to, if you get around to it, to put in some of the greens here as well. I'm just using a color called undersea green. It's one of my favorite greens that granulates out. Just quite obsessed with it these days. And I'm just getting some of that onto the paper, okay, like this, and letting it hopefully mix a little with the buildings, okay. We know that we've also got some here. Now, I don't want there to be all these really sharp shapes all over the buildings. So like around the buildings for the trees and things like that. So that's why I'm just trying to get some of it in here, going pretty light as well. This, you kind of just cut around. I do have a bit of sap green left over. Let's see if there's a tiny bit there. They're kind of a very vibrant sort of green, but it's mainly just undersea green that I'm trying to use here. Okay, so they merge together a little bit like that. Let's have a look at these houses again. Let's simplify down some of this gray color, and we can get in the rooftops and the sides of the buildings. It's all, remember, like really, really light colors running through this section, yeah? So mainly just water that we're using, and a little bit of color. Don't be afraid to leave some of the buildings white as well. There, what have we got here? This could be a bit of building there, here, like that. What else do we have? We've got, you know, that bit of that building which is white. Bit here, dull down that rooftop more. Bit here. Bit of this rooftop which is darker. Got some darkness here. Some more kind of yellowy color for this building like that. There. And some of these areas will be quite dark actually in the buildings, but I don't want to put any of that too much of that darkness or anything in there just yet. Okay. What else do we have? There's this building here, which is pretty much just a kind of white color. Here as well. Darken some of that off. Once we put in some shadows on these buildings, you'll find that it makes a lot more sense. Really, at this moment, there's no shadows. Just trying to get in a really thin wash over everything. Also, try not to go too dark. Okay. There, bit of color in there, bit of color in here. Well, so up to you. You can certainly make the buildings as colorful as you want. I'm gonna try to just subdue this down a little. Okay, good. Alrighty, I'm going to move down into this sort of section and again, just start putting in some little colors for the trees and stuff like that. Undersea green, a lot of this mixed up here. All right, and you'll notice some of this will inevitably mix in with the buildings and that. This one here, I'm just going to leave that edge of the building white, just there. And there's always a certain amount of detail that you can get in with each wash. So there's a point where you just got to stop and let it dry. Come back to it later. So here's some bits of white in there. There could be indications of buildings, for all we know. So over here, base of this church, kind of like that. Okay, cut around that church. Okay, you got a spray bottle as well. Make sure. Oh no, what have I done? I've gone over these figures. Didn't want that. Thought I'd missed out a bit. No problem. Bit of dabbing the tissue can help lift off some of that paint. Okay. More of this green here, here. Sap green is a very vibrant green. So if you notice, look at that, I've dropped in some of that. It looks a lot more vibrant there. Try not to overuse it. Over here, just bringing in some more of this green and little vibrancy in this section. Cut around these white tops of these houses there in the distance. Okay. Doesn't look like much yet, but I'm confident this will turn out okay. Just got to stick with it. Okay, so the ground, not the ground, but basically the foreground. A lot of stuff going on in here, that's for sure. What we can do, probably get in the greens first. Just some of this undersea green. Bring that downwards. We don't really need to worry about this top section yet because we're cutting around it. Bit of that green. It is also fairly light at the front, so careful as well. Just I'm using a pretty large brush to get in these details. Finish off the bottom of those buildings a little like this. Okay. I'll lift off a little bit there to create maybe like an edge or something. Issue. Okay, so bringing all this down, this light green color. Also, what I'm going to do maybe a little differently here is I will darken at the base. And I'm hoping this will create a bit more of a just create more depth, indicate that it's in the foreground essentially. Okay, a bit rolling through like that. Okay. Use some scumbling with your brush, move it around, just skip it over the paper, and you want to get some little textures and things in here. Okay. Good. Now, if you have some gouache, this is going to be useful for this part. Or if you've got some white watercolor paper, paint. Okay, so this just sort of going to be used in a moment, but basically helps you to get in a few, just a few little lighter spots in the grass. Okay, I do have a little knife here as well, and I use this to scratch off little areas to reveal highlights and stuff like that. Okay, but you'll notice I kind of wait for this to dry a little bit. I just want to get in like as much texture and stuff in here as possible. So while it's almost dry, I sort of just spray, put in a little spray of water, spritz of water, a spray bottle, and you'll notice it starts to move around a little bit. Yeah, the paint starts to move a little bit and granulate more. I'm putting a little bit of yellow as well. This is just some yellow ochre. Not too saturated, just a little bit in there. Okay. Spray that down a little and just drop in some of that water. Okay. Might actually spray this bit down here. Dry off completely. So wet and wet. Just trying to get in some wet and wet techniques in bits and pieces here. So little round brush. What have I got? I actually have a little bit of gouache left over from the previous session, but you want to wait for it to dry to the point where it's basically you can still see that the paper is wet, but it's more so damp. The wetter the paper, the more the paint's going to spread when you drop it in. So here's, for example, if I drop in a bit of white like this, look at that, it just spreads quite significantly, as you can see, yeah? So that's good if you want some these larger sort of flowers or what have you down the front. You know, you can drop in a few larger bits of gouache and stuff like that. Mix in a bit of yellow if you want to get some kind of yellowy flowers in there. And these are opaque because I've mixed it with a bit of gouache, bit of watercolor. Well, gouache is watercolor, but a little bit of the transparent watercolor with a bit of opaque gouache. And look at that, just drop them in there and they'll just do this sort of thing. Really good fun. Got to do it now as well while the paper is still wet, yeah, so that it's soft and blends in. Don't have too many hard edges and weird effects, things that will draw too much attention. Okay, so just drop them in, and remember at the front, make these flowers or what have you a little bit bigger. And the reason why is because perspective-wise, objects in the front will appear larger than things in the background. Okay, the little ones in the back, which are just so small. And all this color is going to fade off a little bit as well. And when we go through it afterwards, we can actually draw out like a few petals on these, the bigger ones anyway. Okay, but just have a little bit of play around, scumbling around the back. Kind of thinking for the back ones that what's the easiest way I can do this? We'll go the paint splatter. Those of you who watch my little sessions know that I don't really like doing this because it just gets pretty messy. Can get messy. Just a little bit like that. Here in the background. That. So again, a shortcut method. Hit the brush on another brush. Too much white, some more yellow and a bit of gouache. Perhaps a bit more vibrancy. Increase the yellow that's in there. I've got to be careful as well. I've put too much gouache into my actual yellow on my palette, so it become opaque for next time. Okay, look at that. We've got something happening here. It's starting to take form. Great. And we'll just check the chats a little as well to see how we're all doing. I think we're all good. I think everyone's pretty busy. Tapping away. Few questions. Nerida saying she's going over the building in pen before we paint. Yep, do that as well. Pen and wash. And Denise is saying, well, they're asking, is there a recorded version of this? I'm way behind. Yes, the recording's available afterwards, Denise. You can watch it afterwards. You can also just rewind the video a little bit now if I'm too fast for you, and just watch along. Chats will, I think they'll still be live. Sonal says, can you add salt for texture? Yes, you can. You can add a bit of salt. Salt does kind of similar thing, but the edges will at times appear more harsh. This is a more softer, slightly softer edge in there. I want to get some more greens in here as well, guys. I feel like there's just not enough strength of the greens in that section. I can do some of this in wet into wet. This will be good. And what a mess. I'm creating just an absolute mess on my my desk. But it's a sacrifice we make. So I kind of look at the grass and I'm like, hey, the grass, let's see how dark we want to get it, yeah. And so I'm thinking, it just looked too light. The easiest way to put in some color is just to tap it in like that, and because I don't want it to upset the previous mix too much. Little bits of darkness running through there. Okay. You get some interesting mixes from all this, by the way. Very interesting mixes. Now the gouache is gone. You might think, hey, let's put in a bit more. More yellow, like that. We can put some bigger ones, a bigger one there, here. Run out of gouache. It's a bit much. Larger flower or whatever there. Just trying to get some little areas of contrast stuff around through. A lot of time doing this bit actually. This is going to make the foreground actually come forwards a bit more as well. Contrast between this background. Here comes these figures. Going with a bit of like blue, cerulean blue. I don't know what it is, but this cerulean blue that I've got, it just turns into this weird bubbly mixture when I mix it. Bit of blue like this. Okay. Tiny bit of blue. Perhaps a bit for this one as well. Notice how I'm leaving some white on there as well. And the white just helps to create an edge so that the figure doesn't disappear completely, because we're painting wet into wet. Bit of blue. Let's go with some kind of a red, a desaturated red, mixed with perhaps some of this. Okay. Just a bit of warmer color in there. Same deal, just feather it in a bit. Okay. I don't think the bottom's just dry enough yet. I'll give it a moment. Okay. I like how this bit's turned out on that side. Some water well helps, like if you have some clean water that you just tap onto it. You can have a play around and just tap it on, and that also makes some lighter sort of marks once it dries. Okay. Notice, look at that, it's spreading, right? So you got to be careful. Lift off a bit there. The feet, let's put in legs or whatever. I'm just going to dry brush in a bit of darker color, like that. That to kind of fade in to a little like this, so that we don't have too many sharp edges running through here that ruin the wash. Okay, so look, I mean, it still looks like they're walking through, and we can go through afterwards and get in a bit more color, sharpness there if you want. I think that looks okay. I think that's really looking okay for the time being. Another thing we can do is small textures. So when I was talking about pulling out the little knife here, you can use a credit card as well. That works. You can actually scratch out some. Check this out. These little blades of grass or whatever. And they work quite well. Works quite well if you just leave the paper to dry a little bit and then go in. Okay. Go in and indicate some of this. Make sure you get them coming off in different directions so they don't look all the same. Okay. Some of these will fade back into the paper, and some of them actually will just stay lighter the whole or afterwards, even when they're dried. But we're going to get in some like this, and then also afterwards I'm going to get in some with the brush, the little fan brush, which helps. The fan brush helps to really not built for multitasking, am I at times? The fan brush helps to get in some darker strokes. So these are some lighter kind of strokes for to indicate like grass, like little strands of grass. I wish I could have some more over here, which we can. You can do this. You can use gouache later and draw them in. You know, I'm just trying to get in as many textures, little textures as I can in here, especially while the paper is wet. Okay. Sort of fiddling around, you might think. Soften that a little. And we're going to move on now to the other part of the painting, which is basically all the background of the buildings. And look at that, I've just tapped all this paint all over the top of these buildings, but no biggie. Kate says she has to leave, hope to complete later. Thanks. Thank you, Kate. Be available afterwards, and yeah, drop me a question if you need any more help. How's everyone going on YouTube? I hope you're doing okay, V, and the rest. Ellen, Don, it's just you guys actually, and Miss Nolan, Yvonne. There's a few more actually watching on YouTube, but yeah, if you're here for the first time, drop a message. Love to hear what you think, what you're thinking so far. You have some questions, some general watercolor questions as well, and answer them for you while I'm here. I think we're pretty much caught up with the chats. Good. Or am I? I think I am. Sometimes I just can't see them pop up properly unless I click on the video, but I think we should be all good to go. About 40 something people on Facebook. Look, Jamie's here as well. Jamie Rice from Maryland. How you going, Jamie? Narrator's saying, compared to Winsor & Newton, your cerulean blue is very bright. Yeah, this is a brand. You're in Oh, you're in Australia as well. So like, yeah, it's Art Spectrum. That's what it's called, Art Spectrum. It's almost like a powdery cerulean blue. I like it because it granulates out beautifully. It just when you mix it around, I don't know why, but it forms these weird bubbles. But they do go away if I sort of mix around a bit longer. Alrighty. Now let's go ahead and do some of what I think actually is we will go and just cut around the buildings first, yeah? After we've done the buildings, I think what we'll do is, after we cut around the buildings, is that we will then do the shadows on the buildings as a last stage. I just want to get the sharpness of the buildings first. Sometimes I do the shadows before, sometimes I do them after. At the moment, I kind of feel like doing them after. But knowing me, I tend to mix and do both at the same time. But we'll start off just doing the background first, okay? Where's the So background, let's pick up some green. Dunk that in there like that. This is undersea green. That's more of a test to see how that appears. I'll get some of that yellow. Got a bit of yellow ochre as well that we can mix in here. Okay, bit of that. Some of this green here in the background. Look at also the green in the background. It's really dark compared to the stuff that's in the foreground. Okay, there are some slightly more saturated areas or lighter areas in there. So you can also, if you've got a little bit of what you call it, sap green, you can drop that in there. Okay. This here is interesting. Look at that. I've accidentally created a lighter shape in the corner. Could be a tree or something caught in the light. Notice here the brush is too big. It's getting to a point where I'm almost too uncomfortable to paint with it, to cut around the details. So this is where I sort of switch to a smaller brush and start completing this bit. Okay, let's cut around that church. This, this, and I always tend to get a bit worried when I'm leaving white on the paper at these sort of points because it looks really stark. It looks really out of place, but I reckon if we just leave it, when it dries off, it will be fine. Just that the watercolors have this sort of shiny look to them when you first put them on the paper, and it makes that white really stand out. This the flatness of it. Just something in you just makes you want to color it in. Okay, there we go. Probably one of the trickiest parts of this scene, just cutting around things, taking enough care to. Oh, gone over the top of that building a little bit accidentally. There we go. Just more of this in the background here. And mix in a bit of blue in here as well, a bit of ultramarine to darken this green off a little. Leave some bits of white and things in here for these houses. You actually cut around most of them just like this. You have to keep in mind as well, there are some little trees and things, darker trees running through here. Very sort of smaller trees, but yeah. Go cutting around this top part of the tower there. Okay. I'm choosing to go a bit darker with this green here where it hits the building so that I can create more contrast. I got, what is this? Tree. It's dried kind of funny, hasn't it? Okay. Some more bits and pieces here. Cutting around those houses and stuff. Okay, good. On the bottom as well, we do have some trees and things running through here, which also create a sharp shape on the edges of these tops. I've actually let them lost some of that, the white on them. It takes really a lot of self-control and really reminding yourself not to go over the whites. So um, you certainly, if you have masking fluid and you want to use it, no judgment there. Here, in front, there's a dark sort of shrub, or just a few trees, really, just a whole bunch of trees. Near these figures, got to also just be careful eliminating them as well. We are slowly getting there, guys. We're slowly getting there. Some more green, undersea green I'm using again just up on this top section. I've just mixed it in with other colors, some browns, a bit of yellow, predominantly green though. Okay. Comes up here, soften that off a little. That. I want to get in some nice cerulean in the sky. I just get in the mountains first like this. Okay. I've allowed that bit to dry earlier. Soften that. Just go over it one time. That. Okay. Let's have a look. That building, that's not the building, but the kind of bluish in the background. You'll notice that's a atmospheric perspective, aerial perspective feature that objects in the background will always appear slightly along the cooler spectrum of color. I'm trying to mix up a kind of phthalo green, like a bluish green perhaps, running down the back. Soften that off a little. This. And for the sky, I'm just going to go with cerulean. A really light wash of cerulean. Almost pure water. I do have some green accidentally mixed in there, so I'm just trying to get a bit of that to mix out. Create a little bits of white perhaps here in some areas. Okay. Okay. But fairly light up the top. In fact, I think that's probably slightly too dark. Stick with it. Okay. One darken. Okay. We're getting there. Slowly, we're getting there. So we've got this area of wet in the background, and here is where you can just pick up some darker paint and just do the same thing as we've done below. Just drop in some indications of trees and stuff. Some of them you'll notice they go straight up into the background, into the sky. and I want to make them softer, softer than the actual reference actually. Drop them in, and remember to keep parts of that, parts of the light on the hill. So it's um, not all the same. Bigger brush. Sometimes if you use some of these weird shaped brushes, you can get some shapes that look a bit more natural, believe it or not. Okay. And it's important when you're putting paint in here that you put a thicker paint through this mix. You're not using a watered down paint, because that's going to create blooms here. Okay, this bit is not started to dry off a little. Wet down a little bit. And get some more of this stuff in. Actually, very dark in some areas. Yeah, mix a bit of blue in there as well. Base of these trees, like that is. Use that to cut around the buildings. Tricky bit is preserving the general shape of these trees. I'm trying to get them to come down, looking like they're coming down on a bit of a slope as well. Darker in here. There. More cutting around. Mind you, we haven't got in the shadows on the buildings just yet. Do that once we finish this. Finishing off. Give some of this paint around. There's too much in there. Pick some of that around. Bring that up there. Yeah. And sometimes you get a bit of it just pools and weird areas like that, and any way to really dab it off or shift it around to another place. Worried about this. Worried about that building. It's a bit light. We will play along until we get to the end. So this bit's just a bit of abstract stuff. You know, I've done a whole bunch of abstract tutorials and things, and often people don't like those too much because they're not of anything in particular. Whatever I'm painting, they're just basic brush strokes and a bit of mess and abstract shapes. But I do all this stuff here because I've had practice with those little abstracts. I use the abstracts to learn how the water reacts on paper to things like this, putting in additional paint into areas and seeing how it reacts. Trying to create slightly undefined shapes in some areas. Okay. This is some blue that I've mixed in with the green. Notice sometimes here up the top as well, look, I'm getting some little sharp shapes as well. That's good. Okay, so we don't have not all the same. Bit of sharpness. Not too much though. Okay. We're getting there. We're almost done. More verticals running through here. Flat brush, you can also play around with that flat brush a little. Drop in a bit of that paint. Just create different different shapes. Tissue, you can also do this sort of thing and lift off areas of highlights or bits in the mountains. Want to get rid of some darkness. I kind of just rub it across the paper like this and that. This bit's pooling a lot in there, so I'm going to just lift off some of that. Good. Looking decent. And again, go back in there and correct and put in some more shapes of trees and stuff if you'd like. A lot of this is trial and error, and you kind of like have to stand back a little bit. I'm not doing it myself at the moment, but later I like to stand back and just check. But it's always a good thing to do during the painting as well, just to have a look and see if it's all coming together and it's balanced. Okay. Legs of these. Dry brush. Some of that. Okay. Alrighty, I am going to give this a really quick dry. Okay, just a moment. I'm just having a look to see whether it's okay or not. Bit of water, maybe. Little droplets in here. Help soften up a bit. I want to soften that top section up a bit as well. Oh. Okay, I'm going to pause the audio for a little bit and I'm going to dry this one off. And 𝗣𝗘𝗢𝗡𝗢 here. Thank you for joining. Yes, I'll pause this in a moment. Actually, there's a few questions here. I might answer them quickly. Yeah, Julie says from Wisconsin. So Juliesco from Wisconsin, first time watching, not painting along, but really enjoying watching your technique. We'll paint along with you next tutorial. Fantastic. Yeah, this is it's really good practice for you. Just get your head around some of the techniques that we're using as well, especially when we're working in such a large area. It's a great opportunity to practice some of this stuff. Okay, some questions. Krishna is also here. Krishna Villamore is the same. I'm still improving my watercolor and acrylic painting. This really helps. I think people don't spend enough time actually practicing their techniques, and we often get into paintings and we set ourselves a task and we're like, I'm going to paint this scene. I'm going to paint this enormous landscape and it's going to look this way, but then we haven't had enough practice with executing some of these techniques. So doing this sort of stuff really helps. Jamie says, I'm enjoying this session. I'm learning new techniques. Sorry, but joined too late. Wondering what size of the paper and types of brushes you're using. The paper I'm using is 100% cotton cold press watercolor paper. It is 1/4 sheet, and the brushes, the brushes I'm using are basically like watercolor mop brushes here. So that's a 0 watercolor mop. There's a 3/0 watercolor mop. I'll do a review of these and post them up at some stage. Just haven't got the time to do them lately, so I've got around to doing it basically. There's that, and I have some synthetic brushes, a number 6 round brush synthetic. Got some other novelty ones as well, little fan brush, and the fan brush is for stuff like, I've not done it yet, but we can, for example, do this tiny little feathering of green into the foreground, right? As I was saying before, we had all this bits that I scratched out, little bits of white highlights that I scratched out, but how about some of these blades of grass that are actually darker? Well, there we go. We can do it with this. Okay, so the layering really helps and creates a lot more depth than if you just go in and use just one technique alone. I find when you're using multiple techniques and layering them over the top of each other, get a better effect and just increased sort of feeling of depth painting. A little bit of this dry brush. Never underestimate how effective a little bit of dry brush can be. Even if you've got a smaller brush, you don't have a fan brush, just use a little brush like this and just do this sort of thing. Put in a few brush strokes here and there. Dry the brush off a little bit on the paper, and just go in. Sort of thing. I'm trying to connect the houses, this area of the houses and stuff, a little more with the foreground. So the grass, kind of the stuff in the middle like this, is a way to do that. Bit to connect them up there. Just little strokes in the background. It comes together. Got to be patient and see where it takes you. Okay. Looking good. I'm going to dry this off. A moment. Okay, that's all completely dried off now. Let's put on the final bits of shadows, bring everything together again, and yeah, just basically finish it off. So Angela says it's beautiful, Darren. Thank you, Angela. And Loretta says, hi from Oregon, just got home. Looks like you caught just the end bit of the session, Loretta, but it's available afterwards. You can watch it after as well. So a little round brush, this is gonna do the trick here, and really, I'm looking at getting in final dark areas of shadows and that kind of thing on the buildings. I'm using neutral tint. Might mix it, actually use it over this side a bit more. Neutral tint, maybe a little purple in there. Okay. Simplify this down. This side of the building needs to be a little darker, that right hand side. Just going to put a bit of shadow there on that right side. Right, it's a little damp actually. Coming down there, okay. The right side of that building has to be in shadow. That, okay. This part of the rooftop here. The proportion of paint I'm using is about 50% paint, 50% water, which will get you a nice enough shadow color, but not enough darkness to overwhelm the scene. Okay, there we go. Bit of that shadow, a bit underneath here. There's some shadow underneath the tip of that bit there. No, this is here. So we're imagining the light coming in from that left-hand side. I'm also putting a bit more emphasis on this building because it's larger. Okay, there we go. Bit there at the base, bit of shadow here underneath that side of the building, like that. That might be it. Except more here. Not only that, there's actually some little darker bits in the building, which I'll get in with another quick wash probably later on down the track. But I just want to start off with these like basic shadows to get them in first. You can even put in the windows, like little windows as well. So, you know, where can we start even here? Just get in a window-like shapes. I'm going to do them just in a few little brush strokes. That, and there. There's something here just looks too sharp. Really, at the moment, I'm thinking I might put in some little shrubs or something around it. And it's always a good idea as well using multiple layers. So, you know, for example, you might go darker here, a little bit of a, you know, darker shapes around the edges of that building. That creates another layer over the top. Yeah, around the top side, maybe here. That. Did we have some come up into the buildings? We'll just try that. I want to soften that. For some reason, I just feel like that's much too sharp at the moment. Just soften at least part of it. Also, I have a filbert brush which helps to soften edges. Just one of these. It looks a little bit like a round brush, but it's not. One of these funny edges. That allows you to blend. That allows you to kind of rub onto edges. Soften them. I think that looks better. I also like to soften some edges around sides of buildings, like for example here. Lift off here. Soften this section a bit, lift off. Where it starts looking too forced, that helps. Okay. All right, that's looking okay. Um, more neutral tint. Where else can we sort of play around in? Yeah, just underneath the roofs and even inside the tower itself, there's a fair bit of darkness in there. Just darken a little bit, spots. In a bit. Windows or something here. Going down the side. This is actually a little clock tower, which has a little clock in there. So I'm gonna just indicate circle kind of shape there. Okay. Circular shape. Move some clock hands or something. Like that. There. Working in some details on the roof. Just little dark bits, which I trying to dry brush in. Okay. Bit of shadow here underneath this rooftop. That. Bit for this one, I'm just going to go darker. Around the edge of that roof. I probably would have gone a lot lighter with some of these buildings actually if I had a second go at it. Bit of darkness on the right hand side of these buildings. For the shadows. Lost a fair bit of detail in this section actually. Bit more green, bit more blue. Start putting in some trees or dry brush trees running up into the hills. This. I'm not super pleased with those buildings. I think I've the detailing on it. I could have been more careful with that first wash and also gotten a simplified shadow pattern over the top. But we'll wait for it to dry and then we'll see how it kind of looks. At the moment, I'm just trying to get in a few looser shapes running through for these trees, dry brush shapes, okay, that are gonna stick out a little more top of what we've laid down. Okay, so kind of get them come down the page. Well, it's just a normal very normal round brush that I'm using here to get in some of these shapes and trees, trying to get them form this pattern of going up the hill. That, yeah, they're kind of on a bit of an incline up this section like that. Got a combination of all these different techniques that we've used. Even though I'm not so happy with how the buildings have turned out, pretty happy with the foreground, with the background here. Even just a bit of practice that I've got out of using some of these techniques. Just start putting in some parts. More darkness, just playing around with getting a bit more of that, some shadows and things inside the buildings. And focusing them kind of on the right side of those buildings as well. That one's turned out all right. I think the tip of it, I've lost a bit of that, unfortunately. I feel like kind of going back in with that filbert brush and lifting out a slight bit of paint in there as well. Let me have a, what else? What else could we do? A little bit of gouache in here to feather this all together. Join up the foreground and the background. Sorry, the midground and the background. A little bit of color like that in there. It just looks like grass or something going up, because we have more lighter colors obviously here in the midground and the foreground. So it's like I just soften up some of these sections a bit more, help join it onto the foreground better. And here on that left hand side, something here that will help merge everything together. Right. I think we're almost done. Off camera, I will probably try to do a few things with the top of this spire. I think I'll like lift off, try to redo that a little bit, something like this. Once it's all dried, of course, do that a little bit. But apart from that, I think there's a huge amount else that I want to add in for this one. It's definitely a lot looser than my previous ones. Yeah, definitely a lot looser. I do like these figures. I like the background here of the trees. I like the foreground, some of these interesting shapes that we've got in here. Certainly like some of those. Probably the only thing that I I think I could improve on a lot more as those buildings, having a better indication of the light, more so kind of mirroring this one a bit more. I've lost a bit of that in there. But apart from that, I do like it. So I'm going to take off the paper and let's see how it looks. Sometimes you spend a bit of time away from the painting as well. You find that you come back and you do like it a lot better, or you find some bits and pieces that you want to add in. So I think I'll actually do that for this one. So that is the finished, or more or less the finished painting. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Look, like I said, there's a few things here I feel like I could improve on and structure better. But you know, that's what always happens. You never get it the way you want it all the time. So thank you for joining. I'm just having a look at the comments. If you guys have any comments, let me have a look. Loretta says, this looks very similar to a scene painted a year ago on live Zoom with Eric Rhodes and a few hundred other people. The one we painted was a winter scene. Very similar church and a big hill. Yeah, this scene's been covered a fair bit. I don't know the exact location, but yeah. Jill says, really enjoyed watching. Thank you. But 1:20 a.m. in the UK and I need my sleep. Good idea, Jill. I'll see you next time. Take care. Pamela says, looking good. And you're heading off. Thank you for watching, Pamela. And Tanya says, absolutely beautiful, Darren. Learned so much and have a long way to go. Thanks for joining, Tanya. Good to hear you're back to painting again. And you know, there's actually Nerida was doing this one in pen and wash, so I think pen and wash is a good way to get started, especially to draw out the outlines of the houses and things like that. You tend to, in the beginning, can lose a bit of the contrast and the out edges and stuff like that. And pure watercolor, I know I've certainly lost a bit of that detail in there. I need to do something with this afterwards. I don't know what. I just want to make it stick out a little less. Angela says it's great. Thank you, Darren. Thank you for staying up so late your time. Not a problem, Angela. Thank you for joining. Sonos is lovely. Love the loose style. Have learnt a lot. Thank you. You know, at the end of the day, you got to remember it's all brush mileage. It's just making sure that you are getting that brush on that paper, practicing these techniques. Every little brush stroke like that, that little tree that you're doing. You know, sometimes people say, "Wow, just it looks so much like a tree, even though it's one brush stroke or a couple of brush strokes." That's because I've done that brush stroke like thousands of times, and you just know after a while you get the muscle memory kicks in, and then you just know when to pop that brush on the paper, and it all comes out. So let me have a look. Who else has any questions or any comments? I'd love to hear what you have. Also, there's a group. Check the group. What's it? Facebook.com/groups. Facebook.com/groups/Watercolor Mentor. Upload your version up there. Some of my students have come up with just really unique interpretations of what they've seen. They may sort of zoom in parts and pieces. Put me to shame in many cases, actually. So it's just great to be able to paint along with everyone. I wish we could kind of have like a Zoom class, like a big Zoom class somewhere at some stage. Let's have a look. Rupa, thank you, Rupa, for coming along, and Philip as well. Thank you, and glad you made it along to the end. Let me. I hope to see what you come up with on Instagram. Post it up, and I'll check it out at some stage. Thank you, Lydia. If you guys want some constructive feedback on your paintings as well, post it in the group, and I'll get back to you. I'll try my best to get back to you. I've been doing so, been keeping up so far. And for those of you who are looking for more content as well, I do have a Patreon. If you check that out, patreon.com/watercolor mentor, or just go to I've got a website, watercolormentor.com. There's a lot of free stuff on there, a lot of free articles, a lot of previous workshops. In fact, I think there's about nearly 40 on there that you can go through, and they're very similar to this. Very similar style. The early ones are a little bit shaky because I wasn't so confident on camera back then, but the more recent ones, they're quite a similar sort of style. But I'll hang around a little bit for extra questions, and I'll just check the other stream. How are you doing, Jeanette? How did you go along with your daughters? Were you guys you guys manage to keep up okay? Jeanette's asking, oh, where to put the link of where to put the paintings. Hang on, yeah, I'll post that. Give me a second. Facebook.com. Yeah, so check the comments, guys. I'll just pin it up there. Groups/watercolor mentor. So that's the group. And I'll put the website. The other one. Should be more organized with this stuff, eh? So there's the link up there, which you'll be able to check out, Jeanette. So there's 3 links there. The first link that comes up, that's the group, and the other 2 are just my websites and Patreon. So you can have a look. You can have a look, Jeanette. In the comments, you should see it right there. For some reason, I can't pin the thing. Hang on, maybe I'll just reply to you directly. Jeanette. Okay. There we go. Looking good, looking good. Just checking to see who else. Andrea Luca is here. Thank you. We'll do again. Thank you, Andrea, coming along. Let's have a look. Who else do we? Oh, thank you, Lydia, Vincent, Jamie, Bryce. Thank you, Jamie. This is beautiful. Thanks for sharing your talent and time with us. Not a problem. Not a problem. I love doing this. It's a great thing to do in the morning, especially. I try to paint most days, and I'm actually working on some portraiture stuff. I don't know if you guys want to see. I can just bring it up. Where is it? So I do have a bunch of been asked to do some work on portraits, and I've got a few that I'll just show you. It's kind of a bit different from this stuff, obviously, but portraiture work. So I have a bunch of these that I've been doing lately, and I'm making them into a class. And I actually, at some point, either this week or maybe next week, I'm going to I'm going to actually do a free one. Okay, so on how I paint portraits, how I my process. This one's like a really quick one that I did in probably 20-30 minutes or so, or perhaps longer. I can't really remember. Kind of like a looser style one. Yeah, there's a few in here, different sort of style portraits. Let me have a look. Yeah, so keep an eye on that. I'll make that class available at some stage. I just want to make sure that I've pre-planned it enough, because it's probably be bit more comprehensive. Thank you, Tanya. Catch you around soon. I know we were meant to. Victor says we're going to catch up. Hope to catch up sometime. So yeah, I hope to see you around sometime, Tanya, and yeah, we'll talk more. Then. I think things have just been a bit chaotic these days. I'm on leave at the moment. Diana Robertson says, thank you for your time and advice. Thank you, Diana, for coming along. And yep. I think that's about it. Karen Angelo says, "Thank you. I'll be back." Great to hear. Great to hear. I didn't scare you off, and you've all done very well to stick around to the end and actually finish off your paintings. So remember to upload them to the group. I'm gonna go grab something to eat. Cheers, Don. I will catch everyone later. Thank you.